Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. If you've had an encounter of your own and would like to speak with me whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. For tonight's show, we have a special guest from the UK, Colin Keelty. Colin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vic. It's an honour to be here.
Oh, it's great having you. Please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Well, Vic, I grew up in a small fishing village. Well, it's a small town actually called Hornsea. It's approximately about 18 miles from Hull, maybe same again from Bridlington on the east coast. When I grew up, it was you don't have computer games when I was a kid. I mean, I'm 50 years old now. We was always outside, we was always in the fields or woods or playing everywhere we could, really. My father was a handyman. He did trade, and he was also a game man. He used to go shooting, so he used to take me with him. And, I'm no stranger to the outdoors. When I sort of left school and everything, I used to be reasonably fit. I used to do a lot of running, and that was in the countryside. I got into backpacking. I got into woodmancraft and all sorts. So the outdoors is no stranger to me. Well, I thought I'd seen everything until a few years back, and things started to unfold. But that was it. It's just a normal seaside town. Everybody seemed to know everybody. It was in the 80s, basically, I grew up, and it was absolutely fantastic time, to be honest. But that's me. And now I live in a little village just outside Hornsea. I work full-time amateur photographer now, so that's basically my life. Quickly passed through it there, Vic.
Well, you definitely sound like a well-rounded guy to me. Colin, you got into Sasquatch when you were 14. Please tell us about that.
Yeah, I saw a program. I think it was on the BBC. We only had 3 channels in then. I think it was about I can't remember the exact date, but it was 1979, 1980, somewhere on there. And I saw it on the BBC, and as soon as it come on, I just was memorised by it, to be honest. It was going through different encounters. From Canada, Alaska, there was all over the US. And I was just absolutely glued with it. And it just would not leave my head after the program. We didn't have the internet then. A magazine came out called The Unexplained. So I started buying, I think it was once every fortnight, if I remember correct. So I collected all them, and the more I read about it, the more I was just intrigued about it. The biggest ambition was to come to America and do some of my own investigations, but family and job and everything always gets in the way, I suppose. But yeah, when the internet come along, it just opened up a total big can of worms. It was unbelievable. The amount of stuff out there and the amount of sightings that people have seen is absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, I really, I believe in it, Vic.
Once you found out about the Sasquatch phenomenon, it was like a whole new world opened up for you.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, nowadays, some of your good listeners, I'm sure they use YouTube, but I use it a lot. Some of the sightings, some of the guys out there that's actually investigating are absolutely brilliant. They're doing a really good job. Some of the video evidence, obviously, is a bit hit and miss, but some of it's really spot on.
You started researching U.S. Dogman cases about 3 to 4 years ago. You didn't get into UK Dogman cases until about 2 years ago, though. Why the delay?
Well, to be honest, even though I've seen 1 or 2 on the YouTube over the years, I didn't really sort of make any connection. Or I believed in it, but not totally, not 100%. And eventually I started getting to see a few things on YouTube about the Dogman in UK, and I thought, well, to be honest, I didn't believe that at first, especially in the UK. I thought, well, I can't see how a dogman can survive in the UK. Till I started looking into it, and a bit of my background with walking and backpacking and I thought, well, I suppose it is possible. And the more I've looked into it, the more I'm 100% that there's something out there. What it is, I'm not sure. I'm no expert, obviously, Vic. But the evidence is just overwhelming. It's absolutely, the witnesses. I mean, to be honest, I talked to Paul Sinclair, which, obviously from your episode, I think it was 62 and 64. Yeah, you can correct me there, Vic. But, Paul, some of the people that he's interviewed are real top-notch people. There's like barristers, etc., and people in the community that are really high up. Some that I've spoke to is absolutely. There's one that's involved with the police. Now, I'm sure if that's the last people that are going to start lying, but there's no point in lying, to be honest. They aren't gaining anything out of it. So, but the evidence is out there.
When you tell people you investigate Dogman, what kind of responses do you get?
Well, it's a mixed response, Vic, to be honest. Some are actually intrigued and wanted to know why and how and what goes on and how many have I seen them. And you get all sorts. And some, I'll give you an example. I've got some details of 3 guys. There was on the Beck, there's some boats on the Beck. People actually live in these houseboats. And I got told which one to go to. And I ended up talking to this guy, and then the 2 guys come across, and I was just telling him what I'm up to and what I'm looking into, and I didn't actually mention a Dogman. We started chatting, having a bit of a laugh, and so I said, do you know anything about the Dogman? With that, you just could have cut the air with a knife. They just didn't want to know. They just basically just trying to get rid of me, so I thanked them anyway, and I left. It was just strange, but I do get that a lot. Like, here's a nutter, see you, mate. But you can't blame them, really. When you grow up when you're a kid, it's, get to bed, it's the boogeyman will get you. And when you get older, don't be daft. There's no such thing. Like, there's no such vampires, there's no werewolves, there's no this, there's no that. It's society puts a blanket over you, really. When you actually start seeing things that you can't explain, you start taking another type of view. And you think, well, I've been blind all these years, and now things are, coming into sight. If you understand that, Vic.
I definitely do understand what you're talking about. Yeah, it is a shame that you get treated that way when you're talking about something that really does exist, but that's how it is. I guess all you can do is just deal with it.
Yes, that's it. That's all you have to do. It's there's a saying in Britain, you could have broad shoulders. You just got to be thick-skinned. I have been called a nut. I appreciate that, and I don't mind. They ain't been there. They ain't seen the things I've seen. So, everybody to their own.
That's a good way to look at it. In 1988, a man you know told you that a Sasquatch had put a dent in his van. Please tell us the story he shared with you about that.
Yeah, okay. I can't remember the gentleman's full name, and I don't know if I could give his name out anyway, but he worked for an electronics firm in Hull, in the city Hull. Part of his deliveries was right at the top of Scotland. I can't remember the exact locations, but he says there was all the odd cottage with working mill in it. They used to knit mohair jumpers, etc., and hats, and that's how they earned their living. And there was one place up there, he told me, that he had to go up. Sometimes he took electronic parts, sometimes a washer, and they would get distributed at the top of Scotland. And sometimes they would go out to some of the islands, like Isle of Mull or whatever. Anyway, he says they've been doing it for about 2 years or something, and he kept hearing, because he's obviously slept overnight up there. And he kept going to pubs for pub meals and a drink before he got his head down, get some sleep. And he kept hearing conversations in pubs between these landowners and farmers, etc., about this Sasquatch. So he thought, oh, what a load of rubbish. Absolute load of rubbish. Anyway, I think it was in the second year, he says, what happened, one night, he was trying to save some money. His boss was giving him cash for stopping out on a night, so instead of spending it on board and lodgings, he used to keep it in his pocket and sleep in his van. Anyway, one night he asked whether he had this meal at this pub, and he says, yeah, is it alright to stop outside in my van and sleep in the van? So they says no, they didn't want him on the property after hours. So he says, well, if you go up about 3-4 miles up the road, they says, There's a bit of a lay-by. He says, just get in there. He says, nobody will disturb you. So he thought he'll do that, and it was next to some trees. So he went up there, parked up like. Anyway, he says he was there for about 20 minutes. He just got settled down, took a sleeping bag with him, and just managed to start to set him down, and slowly started to nod. He started hearing all these branches snapping. Then they got closer and closer, he says. And next minute, it just a real massive thud in the back of his van. He says it lifted it off the floor. He says absolutely pooed himself. He jumped out with his sleeping bag, straight in the seat, started the van up and wheel spinned out of there. He says he drove for about 10 miles or so, maybe 15 miles, I think it was. I can't remember the exact details now, Vic. And he got to a little petrol station. One pump, it was one of those outback type of petrol stations, and luckily there was somebody there. So he told them of his experience, and he says they didn't even flinch an eyelid. He says, oh, yeah, okay, then, yeah, well, another one here, yeah. So he says, can I sleep here for the night, and can I use your phone to ring my boss, etc.? I'll pay you. And anyway, he did, his boss had said, can you get the police in? We'll have to investigate this, obviously for insurance purposes. Anyway, the police went back the next day, and the trees was actually bent like a V, he said. Like something had just pulled them apart at the top and just walked through them. And the back of his van, it was just like somebody had really clouted it with a fist. It was unbelievable. Obviously, I never saw any photos. He didn't have a camera then, and cameras really weren't that type of thing in the 80s. But he was absolutely... It had affected him. You could clearly see, and he says they do exist. He thinks they exist. He never saw it. So I started questioning him. I said, are you sure it wasn't an army tank? Because there's a lot of army manoeuvres up there. And he says, no, there was no tank tracks, but the way the trees was actually split in a V. He says, you tell me. He says, because I don't know, but these farmers that he ended up talking to, he says, got you as well, has it? So what it was, Vic, I don't know, but obviously this gentleman that I was talking to was quite clearly shaken up about it.
Oh, I'll bet he was shaken up over that. And I'm sure that also he didn't spend any more nights parked along the side of the road trying to get some sleep in a van. I'm sure he would check into any inn instead.
Yeah, I think, I'd be checking in, I know. Straight after that.
Yeah, I would be too. You struggled for 2 years to get over your first encounter. Please tell us about what you went through trying to get over that encounter.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I couldn't understand what I was seeing. I know what I was seeing, but I think my brain at the time just wouldn't accept it. Like I said, you was brainwashed. I was brainwashed. And I kept thinking, it must have been a trick of the light, I don't know. But about 2 weeks after, maybe 2-3 weeks after, I started thinking about it more, and it got worse and worse, and I started to have nightmares, really bad nightmares. I used to wake up sweating. I remember actually waking up one night and I screamed. In my dream, this thing come over this gate. I'll tell you a bit about the story later, Vic, but this thing that I saw come over the gate and got me and started attacking me, and that's when I woke up in my dream and started screaming, and it took me a very long time. I think maybe about 2 years. It went on slowly in the back of my mind. Yeah, maybe a bit less than that. Slowly it starts going in the back of your memory, and you start forgetting, and it just stays at the back of your memory until sort of like recently, it's only come back to light. Well, I knew about it, but I've only just started talking about it again, Vic, to be honest.
It can take quite some time to get over an experience like that for obvious reasons.
I agree with you there, Vic. I mean, obviously I'll take all this to my grave. I'll never forget about it. I mean, it's, what was it, 15, 20 years or something, maybe longer. You'll never forget about it. Whatever you see out there, it never goes away. I don't care what anybody says. It's always in the back of your memory, and when you go out there again, you're always thinking of it. Am I going to see another one?
When you have an experience like that, it's only natural that it's going to affect you that way. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. In October of 1990, you had your first Dogman encounter. Please tell us about it.
Well, Vic, it's a real long story, but at the time I was living in Hull. I had to get from Hull to Hornsea, and it was about 7:30 in the evening. I didn't have my car, the reason was it just failed an MOT, even though I'm like an ex-mechanic. I was working for another firm. I just didn't have time to repair it, so I got another garage to do it for me, and I needed to get to Hornsea. So with walking, I thought, well, there's no bus services. Not that time of night anyway out there. So I thought, well, I'll start walking. So anyway, I got so far out of Hull, and the ironic thing about this, Vic, to be honest, I'll tell you viewers, it was actually a full moon, and I was actually glad of it, because when you get outside of Hornsea and get away from all the street lights, it's actually pitch black, absolutely. But the full moon that night, it lit it up like day, like a clear day, really. I was really glad of it. Anyway, I got so far out of Hull, and the car pulled up. I says, where you going, mate? So I told him. He says, well, I'm only going so far. Can I give you a lift? I appreciated it. So anyway, he took me so far. Anyway, he dropped me off a place called Whitedale Garage, and which is about, I don't know, halfway maybe to Hornsea, which I was really glad of. And I think I come on the road, and they call it Hatfield Road from Whitedale, which leads to Hornsea. You come up to the next village, which is Great Hatfield, but before I come to the village, this is the road I was on, Great Hatfield Road. I'm not sure the number of the road, but anyway, about halfway down there, I was walking on the left side. Usually when you walk on a night, this is from my backpacking days, you face the traffic. Anyway, that night, I just stayed on the left, so the traffic was behind me. Even though there wasn't much traffic that night, the odd car passed, but that was about it. Anyway, about halfway down this road, on my right, there's a field, and it had a grown hedge, but there's bits missing out of the hedge. You could see it clear as day. Anyway, walking down there, I started hearing something on my right, so I looked, and I could see these two back feet. It looked like a cow's back feet at first. I thought, a cow in a field, like, never thought out of it, and it was following me down as I was walking, and I kept looking at these back legs, and I thought, well, where's the front legs? I couldn't work out where these front legs was. I thought, well, it's got to be a trick of the light, is this? Anyway, a bit further on, I think they kept worrying me, and I kept looking, and I thought, well, no, it's not a cow. I thought, is it a sheep? And I thought, no. They're deer? No. Deers are not like that. And I just couldn't work it out. And I thought, well, it was all black, and it was definitely walking on two legs. I just could not see the two front legs, and I thought, what the heck's wrong with me? Am I tired? Anyway, we got a bit further up, and this must have continued on for a good 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes or so. Anyway, as I was walking up, nearly approaching Hatfield, Great Hatfield, there's a pub on the corner. I think they call it the Rye Garth Inn. I could see it in the distance. Anyway, just coming up, with it being light with the moon, with the light, and I could see this gate all coming up. Anyway, just started to approach. I thought, well, I'll find out what it is in a minute. And I must have had about another 5 steps to go, maybe something like 6 steps, and I heard this car coming up behind me. Anyway, so I stopped, stood on the grass verge to let this car go by. And the car goes shooting by. Next minute, his brake lights come on. Next minute, I saw his race lights come on, and he come hurtling back, and the window goes down, and he goes, Cole? Flipping heck, are you, Rob? There's a friend of mine from Hornsea. He says, what are you doing out here? That's a long story. I need to get to Hornsea. Get in. So I jumped in, and as I did, I looked over to the gate, and something was stood there. I didn't see its face clearly. I could not describe its face at all. I thought, what the? And then we started driving off. I said, Rob, stop, look at that. He goes, what? And he goes, what? I said, that. Anyway, he drove off. I said, do you see it? No. I said, there's a dog. I'm telling you now, it looks like a dog. Stood there. He says, stop being stupid, Carl. He says, I think you need some time off. I said, no, I'm telling you, Rob, there's a dog stood there. Carly says, you're being daft. No dog stands there. No dog stands on its hind legs. So I thought, yeah, he's right. He's got to be right. So I said, I let it go. Anyway, when I got towards it, I kept going on about it. And he says, look, do you want me to run you back? I said, no, don't be stupid. I said, forget it. I said, forget it. And he says, are you going to be all right? I said, yeah, fine. And that was it, really. That's all I saw. But like I say, after about 2, maybe 3 weeks, I started thinking of more and more of it, and it started to worry me, and I thought, what was it? Could it have attacked me? And more answers. The more you think about anything, Vic, the more questions and answers, that you want to know. And it's just going on and on. I mean, like me investigating all these Dogman sightings, it's like looking at a tree. You go up the trunk and you think you've got one question. Next minute you come to a branch and it splits off maybe 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Oh, next minute you've got about 20 questions to ask and you just don't know where to turn. And you're looking for the answers all the time and they're not there. And I think that's very frustrating, but yeah, my first sighting, and that's basically what happened. I didn't get attacked. I just saw what I saw, and I can't explain what I saw. And I can't put them legs to any known animal I have ever seen. Now, like I say, as you know, I've backpacked, I'm into wildlife. I actually study wildlife, and I have never seen any legs that I can put them to. Apart from dog-ish legs. That's all I can say, Vic.
I can understand why you responded the way you did. That's not easy to deal with. How long did you wait after you told Rob what you had seen to tell anyone else?
I think it was the very next day. I worked with this guy, obviously. Again, I won't say his name. He was quite understanding, to be honest. I liked working with him. Anything you told him, he always sat there and listened. So I told him, and he says, well, yeah, I believe you, he said. And I said, oh, right. I didn't know if he was taking the mickey at the time, but I knew him that well that I knew he wanted. I just thought, well, he is a good listener and it's got off my chest. And I did. I've got to admit, anything that you say to anybody else, it does get off your chest. There's a lot of mental issues in this world, for one reason or the other. So when you see something like this, actually talking to somebody does really help. These are 2 friends. And that was it, but it did affect me. I think you need to talk to somebody professionally if it does get on further, which I didn't. Going to a doctor and saying, excuse me, I've seen a werewolf and I think I need some help. Don't go down too well.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't seem to be the best course of action.
I think after them 2, maybe 3 weeks or whatever, I kept thinking about it. I did realise it was something that it's not supposed to be, maybe not what's supposed to be on this world. They maybe belong here same as us, you know, what right do we have to be here, just like them, you know, it's, they may be on the earth before us. But yeah, I just thought, well, is it dangerous? Wasn't it dangerous? You know, and that's what I think really affected me. I started thinking of maybe werewolf things, maybe subconsciously I started thinking of werewolf things, but I remember the nightmares quite well, to be honest, Vic, and some of them was quite disturbing. But like I say, over the years, you slowly get over it. Some people out there that do see sightings, I mean, on your show, I mean, you've talked to 1 or 2, and they suffer quite well with it, you know, real bad, to be honest. And it is hard living with it, that you've seen it, because society says that these things aren't there, and you've seen something that you know is not supposed to be there, but you know it's real because you've seen it.
I'm not sure what's harder to get over, the actual experience itself or how most people treat you when you reach out to them. It really is unfortunate.
I think it's a bit of both, really, but I think the more... It's the sighting, really. And like I said, I think it's a sighting because it's bred into you when you're a kid. Don't be stupid, there's no such things. And you just go through life like that. And then when you see something and they say, oh, that doesn't exist, but I'm seeing it. But I think if there was somebody out there... you could go to, this is why I'm starting to do this, and I think you're going to pick on it a bit later, but a guy saw one on the golf course. When he was actually speaking to me, after he spoke to me and told me his story, he says, thank you. So I said, what for? He says, well, it's built up inside for me for all these years, and I've had nobody to talk to. And, you know, it's got it out of his system. I think he can, oh, wow, I'm all right now. I mean, like when you get rid of tension, you maybe have some problem at home and then you go see a psychiatrist, whatever. I've never seen one, but when you get it out of your system, you feel a lot better.
You are providing a really important service there. Yeah, it's easy to think that what I do is something special, but it really isn't. All you're doing is just listening to these people who unfortunately had these experiences with Dogman. If you don't do anything outside of that, except for just sit there and listen to them patiently, that right there will work wonders in a lot of cases towards helping these eyewitnesses feel better. So, yeah, I'm so glad, like I said, that man found you and was able to unload on you and tell you about his experience. Could you tell roughly how big that creature was that you saw that night?
It's hard to measure it, but just going back to what you've just said, I think you are very important, Vic. Your shows, again, it's another release. It's like me talking to you now. It's releasing what I feel inside to you and to your listeners. So yeah, you are very important, Vic. So, but yeah, going back to the sighting, I'm not really sure. A rough estimate, I'd say it's maybe 6.5, 7 foot ish tall.
When it was back in the shadows looking at you after you had gotten into Rob's car, did it seem to be just focused on you, or was it possibly distracted by something else? What kind of impression did you get?
To be honest, I'm not sure. You could see sort of like the bottom half. I think it's the way the hedge was, well, the way the position of the moon and the hedge. I could see the bottom half, and all the top was in black in the shadows. So that's why I didn't get a real good look at its face. But it was definitely upright. I don't know if it was focused on me. Like I say, I couldn't see its head clearly at all. So that's why I wasn't sure what it was. I can't really say on that, Vic, to be honest.
Oh, that's all right. Did you suffer any unexpected problems as a direct result of that encounter?
Apart from the nightmares, not really, no. I think the nightmares turned pretty bad. My partner at the time, I mentioned it roughly to her, but I just kept it to myself. I shouldn't have done, really. I suppose it's my own fault. I maybe could have got it out of my system, but you don't know if people believe you, even if you've got a partner you live with. And they're always a good listener, partners anyway, but I just felt it belonged to me, and I had to just keep it there inside me. It's a strange feeling, Vic. I can't really explain it, to be honest.
That does make good sense. On the 27th of September of 2015, you had your second encounter. What happened?
Well, it's another one, a strange one again. I've talked to Paul Sinclair about this one, and the location it is, I can't give you the details. It is private land. It's owned by a big, let's say, a company. And I met the owner maybe about 4 months prior to the sighting, Vic. I got permission to go on the land and go into his woods, etc. And I've been hitting this woods for about 3 months. With my photography, let me explain something. I've walked through them woods about half an hour before sunrise, and it hadn't bothered me, even though from my first encounter I wasn't sure about that. But I've walked through there because the first light, when soon as the sun rises and when you get that bit of light, it's the first 2 hours, it's like first 2 golden hours. A lot of wildlife seems to be dancing around at that time, in the morning. And even on the night when there's a sunset, an hour before, maybe 2 hours before, I usually get a lot of wildlife. So I always like to get there early, and I've walked through that woods I try to do every weekend. I couldn't do every weekend. I just did one, it was either Saturday or Sunday, depending what day I had off from work. But I tried to get into the woods, and I usually get there early, maybe, 5, 4 in the morning. I'd walk through the woods with a torch, and you do things around you, bouncing around. You give it no thought, really. Until I got to the other end, I used to set my gear up, and that's it. I used to love it. But that day on the 27th, I actually got there late. I woke up, my alarm went off early, and I thought, well, I'm going to have a snooze. So I pressed snooze, and believe it or not, it never went back off for an hour and a half, and I couldn't believe it. Oh, now I'm going to be late. I'm going to miss all this, the wildlife. And so I was rushing about. Anyway, the time I actually got there, it was about 8:10, and I parked my car, I was told to park my car down the lane. I trundled off. It's about about half a mile walk down this track, this narrow track. And you come to the woods. Anyway, as I was approaching the woods, I adopt me walk. An old guy taught me this a few years ago, funny enough. And how to try and walk silently. And so I've tried to adopt it a lot. So as I was approaching the woods, I was just watching where I stepped, and just really light footsteps. Anyway, there's these woods. They've put a new plantation in. I'm not sure what the trees they are, but these trees are about waist height. Not a lot of them. I'd say maybe 30, 40 of these new trees growing. And as I was walking down the track coming into the woods, it's on my right, all this new plantation. Well, it's overgrown with grass, because obviously they can't cut the grass because of the trees that they're growing. And I'm slowly going up there, just looking around. Just imagine if I'm looking up the track that I'm walking up at the moment, and imagine a clock face, and I'm heading 12 o'clock. Anyway, something dead on 3 o'clock, something small, I'd say fox size, just got up and shot off, straight across. And to be honest, I thought it was a badger or a fox. I wasn't really sure. Within a second, at say the 1 o'clock position, something large got up and just ran off towards the woods. I thought immediately it was deer, a mother and a foal, and I just hit the floor because I didn't want to disturb them anymore. With deer, usually sometimes with deer, when I've come across deer and photographing deer, sometimes you'll spook them and they'll just run off and that's it, they've gone. They'll go for miles. Sometimes they'll go so far and they'll stop and they'll look round to see what's there, like what's chasing them or anything like that. So I was hoping that's what would happen with this. So there I am crouched under this long grass, like, I thought, well, I'll give it about 20 seconds or so. I slowly rose up. Couldn't see anything. Couldn't see any deer. So I thought to myself, I'm going to sneak through the long grass, because it'd be a perfect picture if I could get this deer's head above this long grass. I thought it might make a really good picture. So anyway, I started walking through this long grass. I must have got in, I don't know, about 10, 12 feet or something. And I come across this biggest pile of poo that you can imagine. And it was a meaty poo. I mean, I used to keep dogs. My parents used to keep dogs. I mean, I've seen all sorts of poo with being in the wildlife, game type of thing. And I couldn't put it to anything. And it really scared me because of the amount that was there. And it was definitely a meaty type of poo. I'm no expert on poo, Vic. I don't know what it actually come from, but I could tell it was like a meaty. And I tried to judge how old it was. Like I say, again, I'm no expert. And I thought maybe from 24 hours at the most. It was still slightly moist, but starting to dry out a bit. Anyway, I looked to the left, and the grass had been flattened down in almost a perfect circle. It was about 3.5, 4 feet across, I think, a rough guess. I thought, what the heck's been laid on that? I thought, what the heck? Then I thought, Cole, stop being stupid. I've had to go to toilet, went out backpacking. When I have my backpack on, there's always a toilet roll in my backpack. So I thought, there's got to be a twitcher here, a bird watcher. We call them twitches in the UK. I don't know what you call them in the USA. I thought, I bet he's been sat here. He's got cut short. He's had to do it. That's it. We've all, well, a lot of us have been there. I've done it several times over the years. You just get cut short. So I thought, all right, that's it. Sorry. So I thought, well, I'll get back on track, get through these woods, and get to the other side where I wanted to be. Anyway, so I started walking. I come out with the long grass. And as soon as I come out of the long grass, I just got this burning sensation. I've been watched. So I was looking around, see if there's anybody around. I couldn't see anybody. I don't know, it's about maybe 200, maybe 300 yards roughly. And you went into the woods, but you go over like a little stream. There's like a little bridge. As soon as I got to that bridge, the burning sensation was unbelievable. And every time I've been in that woods over the past 3 months, no matter what time of day it is, it's always activity in there, bird activity or whatever. You hear noise. As soon as I got to that, it was just deadly silent. It was just like I walked into a soundproof room. You couldn't hear anything. It was really weird. But the sensation of something watching me was absolutely overwhelming. And the air started to come on the back of my neck, and I started to get this smell. Paul asked me what the smell was. I thought it was like a wet dog, but it was hard to describe the smell. It was like I've been to public toilets. Obviously, I'm a driver. That's what I do now. I drive a wagon, and some of the toilets you go in are absolutely disgusting. And that type of smell, not clean toilets. It was real. I thought, what is it like? And I kept looking in the dike where it was crossing the little stream. Stinks. But I still, all the time, I was getting this burning sensation. Anyway, I come across this little footbridge. And on my right again, this is where this large thing that actually ran. This is the area. And I come across the little footbridge, and on my right it's all bracken and brambles, and it's all overgrown. And I started walking down there, and I could hear footsteps behind this bracken. And I thought, what the heck is that? So I stopped, and it like a couple of footsteps, and it stopped. So I walked again, and then it started again. You could definitely hear it. It was snapping branches, and I stopped. It stopped. So I thought, well, there's got to be one of the wardens, one of the guys that looks after the land there. So I shouts over. I says, "Oh, it's Colin." I says, "Photographer. I have got permission to be on here." "Oh, was that like?" No answer. So I shouted again. Still no answer. That was strange. So I thought, well, let's go. And I started walking again, and then you could hear it. So I stopped again. It took like maybe 1 or 2 steps. Stopped. I thought, definitely something there, like. So I got on all fours to see if I could look under the bracken, and I could not see anything. It was that thick and overgrown. I mean, it was just unbelievable. You just couldn't see anything. So I got back up, and all the time there, my neck was standing up and my heart was beating. I just felt like I was in danger. Is the best way to put it. Anyway, I thought, right, I'm going to get out here. I'm going to continue on to the other side of the woods, like, and I started walking. I heard it walking, but after about, I don't know, probably about 200 yards, this bracken come to an end. You could definitely hear it walking. Anyway, some bits I was missing, they started to thin out this old bracken and all the brambles that was overgrown. And I just got an image of something black, and it was big black. I don't know what the heck it was, and I thought, right, my heart went in my mouth. I thought, oh, no. And I was absolutely petrified, to be honest with you. I was trying to keep me cool. I was trying to not to show fear, even though I was shaking, literally shaking. I couldn't even hardly hold my camera. Anyway, I tried to keep me cool and that, and I started to walk on. All the time I had this burning sensation that these eyes was on me. Anyway, as I was walking up, I kept stopping and looking through my camera, through the viewfinder on my camera, pretending I was just trying to take pictures, but I was always kept looking at this spot. And I never found anything. But I think it goes for about a quarter of a mile to the other side of the woods, and there's a hard. Somebody's built this little hard, bird hard, and I've used it a couple of times before that. So I got in it, and you can actually lock the door. I shut the door, and there's a knot missing out one of the planks, and I just put my eye against this plank, and I must have sat there for about 6 minutes or more. I was just absolutely petrified, and I was waiting for this thing to come out of the woods. Anyway, after a bit, I didn't know what to do. I was panicking. I started to sweat, and I thought, oh, calm down, Cole, calm down. It's probably some guy up there, that's all. And I thought, oh, calm down. And I did. After, must be about 20 minutes, I started to calm down. I got my flask out, I had a cup of tea. And I thought, do I go home? What do I do? Anyway, I decided to stay there, and I set my camera up and everything, got the tripod out, and I just sat there, but I just couldn't focus on the wildlife. Like, this thing was running through my head all the time. And about 2 hours later, I heard the dog, and my heart went in my mouth. Luckily, it was one of the wardens that look after the land. Anyway, I let him in, and he says, I thought it was you, Cole. And I says, yeah, how are you doing, like, He said, I thought it was your car at the top of the lane there. So I says, can I ask you a question? And he says, oh yeah. He says, I says, you weren't in the woods earlier, was you? No, I've just turned up. Was one of your staff in the woods? No, don't work Sundays. So I said, oh, right, okay, all right then. And I left it at that, and I said, well, I'm packing up, I'm going home now, and I just packed up. And then I walked past up that way, because you had to get back onto the track to get to my car, and it was just like a summer's day, the birds were singing. It was just like nothing ever happened. And what kicks me the most, to be honest, Vic, when I go home and that, and later in the afternoon, I was laid in the bath, and I thought, why not I take a picture? Why did I not take a picture on my mobile phone? I know my camera wouldn't have done it, because I use a 600mm lens, and I'd have to be quite a few yards back to actually take a picture of all this flattened grass and the poo. But it just did not occur to me at the time to take a picture, which that would have backed it up. But there was definitely something bipedal there, and I don't care what anybody says. There was two. There was a large and a small one, so I don't know if it was maybe a mother and a cub or whatever you call them. But it was just deadly silent. And the burning sensation, I've never ever felt anything like that in my life. And I've got to admit, it did scare the heck out of me. And that's what got me into doing my own investigations. After a few months, I thought, I'm going to look into this, because I started to have nightmares again. But now I've started to investigate, these nightmares have started they've gone, really, to be honest, Vic. But yeah, it was weird, even though, again, I didn't see it. There was definitely something behind this bush. And the way it was walking, well, like I said, there was something there. But what, Vic, I can't say.
Well, don't feel bad. An experience like that would give almost anyone nightmares. You mentioned that pile of poo. How large was it?
If I put my 2 fists together and then put another 2 fists on top, well, maybe 1 fist, 2 fists together, 1 on top, it was about that size poo, if you follow that.
Do you think that large creature had been dropping the kids off at the pool when you came walking past it?
Sorry, Vic, what was that?
Oh, that's just a phrase. Dropping the kids off at the pool is a phrase for taking a dump, having an excrement.
I have never ever heard that before, Vic. I don't know. There was, like I say, there was definitely something on my right that took off, something small. I'd say small dog size, maybe fox size. And like I say, within a second, something large. That's what I thought straight away, deer. That's why I hit the floor. I didn't want the deer to see me. I didn't want to spook them anymore. Obviously, I don't think it was deer, to be honest, Vic.
Yeah, sure doesn't sound like deer to me. When you heard the large creature get up and run off from your 1 o'clock, how close was it initially?
I'd say roughly, again, yeah, about 10, 12 feet into the long grass. I just saw a flash. Because I was looking forward at the time. Well, I looked at the one on the right, the small, and I thought, it was a rabbit or a fox. And I just flung my head back to the track, and with that, the flash, it definitely running through the grass. You could see all the grass parting, like it was on all fours. It wasn't upright. It was on all fours as it ran through.
Yeah, that is too close for comfort. Way too close. That encounter you had last year upset you more than your first encounter. Why is that?
I don't know. To be honest, I can't answer that question, Vic. I've never been back to them woods, I've got to admit. And going out on a night and doing my photography early hours in the morning, I still haven't done that since then. I don't like things getting to me. I don't like things trying to scare me or rule me. It's like riding a bike. If you fall off a bike, you get back up, get up, back on your bike. Like I says, you have surfers in the US with shark-infested waters. You get attacked, they get patched up, and they're straight back on the surfboard. It has affected me, but I'm trying not to let it bother me as much, even though when I do go out, I'm thinking, what is around the next corner? And it is always in the back of your mind. But as going out on a night on my own or walking through them woods early hours in the morning, it's a tough one. I don't know if I'd do it. I'll do it with somebody else if I had some company. On my own, I'm not 100% Vic.
Almost anyone will have trouble doing something like that after having those experiences. Do you think another encounter just might push you over the edge?
No, to be honest, I'm trying to have one. I keep looking for this alleged creature, beast, whatever you want to call it, a dogman. I keep looking for it. I want to gain some evidence. I'm just hoping, I do want to see it. The next one, no, I don't think it will put me over the edge, but I can't answer that until it actually happens, Vic.
Yeah, I guess that is one of those situations where you never really will know until you're faced with it. Do you have any idea why you had that second encounter when most people never even have one?
To be honest, I don't, Vic. I seem to attract things. I don't know why. I have this ability. I have one for blowing my own trumpet anyway. But every time I go out, I seem to have a bit of a, I don't know if it's the right word, like a sixth sense. I can be walking, and next minute I'll just look to my right, real sharply, and there'll be a fox there or something, and it'll be another field. And I just get this sense all the time, and weird things happen. I've had birds of prey fight in front of me. They just come. They could have chose any part of the field. And, I've had all sorts of weird stuff happening in front of me, and why I don't know, Vic. I can't answer that. Maybe one day I might be able to answer it, but it's one of them mysteries of life that you never, get the answer for that one, Vic.
Oh, I'm sure you're right. You've been speaking with a Dogman eyewitness from a town named Halsham about her encounter. What happened to her?
Well, I haven't spoke to her directly. I've tried to contact the lady, and I've failed. But Paul Sinclair is actually onto this one. He's doing the investigation. He's actually spoke to the passenger that was in the car. Unfortunately, we don't know where we are with this one, to be honest, Vic. So I can't really answer that, to be honest.
Honesty, that's what we're looking for anyway. So, no big deal. You recently spoke with a poacher you know who had 2 encounters of his own. What did he tell you about those experiences?
Yeah, this is a very interesting one. I really like this one. I've known this guy for quite a number of years. He is a bit of a Jack the Lad, but he's one of these rogues that you love. And he's one of the most nicest guys you could ever meet. He'd do anything for anybody. And if you had his last £5 note on him and he saw an homeless guy, he'd go give him it. He's that type of guy. He's absolutely fantastic, to be honest. Anyway, the other day I was parked up in my wagon. I parked up to get a drink, and he come trundling over and he says, "I hear you into strange things." So I said, "Well, yeah, sort of. Why?" So he says, "Well, I got told a while back," and he says, "I've been thinking." He says, "I've got a couple of stories for you." So I said, "Oh, go on then." So we had a cup of tea anyway. Usually I carry a dictaphone, but I never take it to work. So I like to record people's. I ask them if I can use it, and a lot of them say, "Yeah, that's no problem." Anyway, he was telling me that in the 80s, he's actually older than me. He's in his late 50s. I'm 50. And he was telling me, yeah, his first sort of like real job, it was a bit of a dead end job. And not really much money. And, he just got with a girlfriend and started living together. And trying to make ends meet was absolutely terrible. But he did like shooting. He had a high-powered rifle, which he wasn't supposed to have, to be honest. And so I used to go out and get 1 or 2 rabbits for the pot, really. And I don't grudge anybody doing that, even though I love wildlife. My dad used to do it. People who put meat on the table for a family, that's it, that's good. I think that's brilliant. But if the people that kill animals just for sport is just absolutely beyond me. And, well, you don't want any language on the show of it. But anyway, and that's what he did. Then people started asking him, well, could you get me a rabbit? Could you get me a pheasant? And actually he says, it just started spanning from there, he says. And then Butcher's saying, can you get me this? And it was coming a good little earner. And, he's managed to buy things for the family and all that. And this kept going on for like a couple of years. Anyway, he says it again, it was about sort of like 86 time. They weren't sure of the date. He says, I'd have to speak with his mate, the exact date, but he hadn't seen him for a few weeks. And he said the first experience, he says, he thinks it was around about sort of some midsummer time. It's coming maybe to the end. And they used to do poaching late at night, anywhere from about 12 till, well, he usually said they tried to knock off around about 3:30 in the morning. Anyway, this particular one was at Scarler, which Scarler is out of Hull, sort of like, and it's going towards a little village of Leven. It's in between. Scale is about 7 miles roughly, at the top of my head, out of Hull. And when you get into Scale, there's a lane on your right, on your left, and they call it Arnold Ings Lane, I think. And I think it comes to the end, and it's called Arnold Ings Drain, if I remember correct, Vic. Anyway, they says that they was using that at that time of month. They was just doing that area, and there's a bit of woods, and it was 2:00 in the morning. They've gone down these woods, and there was absolutely no about it, he says. He says, we've got a rabbit, and that was about it, really. And we've been there for about an hour. And it was coming, so they decided to come out of the woods and call it a night. He says it was a really bad night. It was, pointless going out. There's no wildlife about. Anyway, they were coming to the edge of the woods where this field is. They had to walk across another field, obviously, to get to the car. Anyway, it was just coming to the edge of the woods, like I say, where this field is. And he heard a low growl. Then he heard like a howl. Anyway, it was quite a light night, he says. His mate looked at him and says, what is that? He says, so we'll call my poacher friend Bob. Anyway, Bob turned to his mate and says, I don't know, but I think we'll have to get thee out of here. Anyway, the shot off like, and anyway, so he was telling me all this, and I said, can you show me on a map? And he showed me. So I said, what was the growl like? So he said, it was a real, like, doggy growl at first, and it was this a weird howl, real howling noise. Anyway, on my mobile phone, I've tried to trace it out for you, Vic, but I can't find it. But on YouTube, again in America, I might have this wrong, listeners, but there was a guy on YouTube, and he thought he was having Dogman encounters at the bottom of his land, and he kept hearing these howls on the night. So he got a recording device and recorded it. So I recorded it off that onto my mobile phone. So anyway, after we finished chatting, and he showed me all the exact locations that this happened, and he talked me all through it, where he went and where it exactly was. I says, look, I'm going to let you listen to something here, Bob. So I got my mobile phone out and played it. And as soon as I played it, his jaw just dropped. He says, where did you get that from? So I explained where I got it from. He says, that is almost exactly what I heard. He says, in that tone type of thing. So I said, wow. I said, that's interesting. So that was it. And he had a second one. He says about 2 to 3 weeks later, they moved up to a further wood, which is about a mile away. And that was heading towards the village of Leven. And they was in this woods, and he says that it's about 1:30 roughly, he says, and they could see this thing coming down the edge. And again, it was quite a late night, it went real pitch black. And they could see this thing moving, they weren't sure what it was. So his mate says, I think we'd better go in this edge. Anyway, they realised it was a dry dike, so they slid down this dike and stopped in the bottom of this dike. Anyway, this thing come up to roughly where there was, and he says it was shacking the trees and everything. And his mate says, what is it? What is it? He says, I think it's an horse. He says, you sure? He said, well, I think it is. Anyway, it just sort of like ran off. So he says, I think we'd better get out of here. And they did. So I said, was it a horse? He said, I don't know. He says, no, when the horses shack trees? I said, yeah, good point. So anyway, to this day, I don't know, but he says that's the only two things that he's ever come across that was really weird. But when I played that audio to him, he just says, that's it. He says, that's what we heard. Anyway, he says he's going to get back to me, Vic. He hasn't got back to me yet, but he's going to have a word with his mate who used to always go with him. They don't do it now. They both are in decent jobs, and, you know, this was the 80s. But he's going to try and get an exact date and, you know, what month it was. So I'm looking forward to that, just to record it into my books anyway, Vic.
Do you think the fact that he had those two encounters had anything to do with him stopping poaching?
No, I did ask that, to be honest, Vic. He says he did continue on for another couple of years. Then, like I say, he got a decent job, and it just fizzled out, really. He cut the gun up, because this high-powered rifle that they had, they weren't supposed to have. That's why I can't obviously name these gentlemen. So, no, I don't think it did. He's the type of guy that he doesn't scare easily, really. Like I say, he's a bit of a Jack the Lad, and when he was younger, he was always in fights, so he doesn't scare. And I know he doesn't scare, but he's the most gentlest guy you could ever really come across, to be honest. Once you're a friend of him, you're a friend of life. So, like I said, I've only known him for a few years, but personally, I don't think that did scare him.
You mentioned twice that you know Paul Sinclair. How did you meet him?
Well, it started with me investigations. When I started doing investigations and I started getting websites up and reading into other people's stories, Paul's name kept cropping up. So, and he says he was in the UK, so I thought, oh, this is interesting. So I did a bit of research on Paul, and I found he lived in Bridlington, which is only, from here, about 10 mile, I think, 12 mile. So I thought, well, that's handy. So I looked on Facebook, and there he was. And after that, you know, we've chatted a few times, and I class him as a good friend. He seems a really nice gentleman. He's very, very knowledgeable, and he's got such a passion, the same as mine, for investigating things. Even though Paul's main investigation is UFOs, he has got into the Dogman scene and also the Black Panther or Big Cat scene in Britain as well.
From what I understand, you plan to do some night investigations with Paul. You must be looking forward to that.
Oh, very much, yes. A little bit, yeah. I've got a 4x4, so I've put extra lights on it, to be honest, Vic. And I've got what they call, I don't know, hunters use them for spotting prey. I think they call it lamping, and it's a heck of a spotlight that plugs in your sig lighter. But does half light the field up. So, yeah, I'm hoping to go out with Paul. We have promised each other we are going to go and do some night investigations with each other out in the field. He already does it with, to be honest, I can't think of his name, Vic offhand now. He does go out with somebody on a night. But yeah, we're both looking forward to it. And yeah, I hope we do encounter something.
Paul is a good man. I can't think of a better man for you to go out there and look for these things with.
Yeah, I can't really. He's like I say, he's very knowledgeable, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. When I think it'll be the next few weeks, hopefully. I did mention that the places that we wanted to go at the moment, it's holiday camps are everywhere around there, and it's school holidays here at the moment, so everybody's in all these camps. So when it quiets down a little bit, I think we're going to go out on a late investigation.
I hope you have good luck when you're out there. You spoke with another eyewitness who had an encounter at a golf course near a town called Hornsea. In fact, earlier in the interview, you mentioned this gentleman. What happened to him?
I got to know him through a friend, really. I mean, I don't know the guy. I've never met him until I interviewed him. A friend of mine mentioned it because he says he did mention it years ago. This is when it happened. So I said, is he willing to talk to me? And anyway, I got his mobile number and I contacted the gentleman. And we did meet up for a coffee, and he told me, well, he was having a lot of family issues at the time. His dad had passed away about a few months prior. Anyway, the road, I'm trying to get off the top of my head, what we call that road. I think it's Hull Road, then it goes into the Great Hatfield Road. That's where I had my encounter on the Great Hatfield Road. Then you come up to, there's a big water tower on a hill, then it comes into Hull Road, then it goes into Hornsea. Anyway, when it starts for the Hull Road, as you're going into Hornsea, on your right there's a golf course. It's a massive golf course. I don't play golf, to be honest with myself, but they say it's a big golf course. And it seems to stretch for miles anyway. But just there where the water tower is, there's like a little car park. And he says, he used to go in there some nights to clear his head and just have a cigarette before he went home. Anyway, this night, he says, it just got dusk, it just like it was starting to fail. And he pulled in, and he says he can't have been there more than 2-3 minutes or whatever. And next minute, this thing just walked past. It's all fenced off, but he says it's one of these fences, lap fences that you can see through and everything. He says this thing just walked past the front of his car, and he says it was bipedal, it was upright, and so I says, well, can you give me a description? And he says, well, the best way I can describe that, he says, them breed of Irish wolfhounds. And I says, yeah. He said, it was one of them on legs. So I says, right. I never asked him what he meant by legs, but obviously he must have meant he was stood upright. But I should have asked him. I mean, I'm pretty new at the interviewing game, but when he says legs, does he mean like human legs, or does he just mean it was upright? But like I say, after the interview, when he told me all it, he says it did scare him. Well, he says, I wasn't sure if somebody was messing about. He says, I looked around. There was no one else around. And it just walked off down the golf course. So he thought, is somebody playing tricks? Is it somebody in a costume? And he says, again, it's maybe like me, it started to play on his mind, and it did start to worry him. When he got home, he told some of his family, he told some of his friends. That's why he wants to keep his name secret. And he says he got absolutely ridiculed for it. He says it must have gone on for weeks, and he says how sick of people just taking the mickey, he says. And the next minute I turn along, and he talks to me, and he says, to be honest, he says, thanks. He says, it's got out my system and it's got off my shoulder. He says, I feel like, I feel a lot better. And, I thanked him, and that was it, really. That's all I can tell about that one.
I never have heard of one that looked like an Irish wolfhound on two legs. That's awfully
Yeah.
strange.
I've got to admit, Vic, all the videos and the blogs I've read and that, nobody's mentioned that. It's all like, wow, okay then.
Yeah, that is pretty strange. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Call. I really do appreciate you coming on, but before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
I can't think of any offhand. If anybody is interested in this, obviously, yourself, Vic, is the guy to contact, and you point them in the right direction. But obviously, I followed you for a while, Vic, and I've heard a lot of people say on there, don't go looking for it. It's maybe good advice, because I know these things can attack, and if you believe in it or not, just stay at home on night, maybe keep safe. But the most important thing is, just don't have nightmares over it, really. And if you do, seek help.
Those are really good words of advice. Thanks again so much for coming on the show and sharing those experiences with us. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, Vic. It's been an honour to be invited onto the show, to be honest. It really is a big event in my diary, to be honest, Vic, and I appreciate what you've done for me too, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks again so much for coming on, Colin. I wish you nothing but the best. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye, Vic.
Bye.